Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, then I'm so happy to meet you. If not, then welcome back. As always, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a big thumbs up. Turn on your notifications bell and you'll be notified each time I have a new upload. Now, as you can tell by the title of today's video, this is a very different video for me. I'm by no means a true crime channel, so this is not something I would normally do. But when I seen this story about this young autistic woman, I felt it was important for me to do a video, and it was important for the community not to forget this name and not to forget what this young autistic woman went through. You may or may not have heard of the case of Lacey Fletcher. She was a 36-year-old autistic woman who was found dead in her parents' home in 2022. I will go into more detail. I do want to give a trigger warning. Some of this information is distressing. There will be mention of death and abuse and neglect, and I want to give a trigger warning for anyone who may find it upsetting or just that it is a very sensitive topic. So to get into it, basically, Lacey Fletcher grew up in Louisiana. She was an only child to Clay and Sheila Fletcher. As a child, she went to school and she had friends. And when she went to kind of high school, in her teenage years, her parents began to homeschool her. She is described as having an anxiety disorder, and also she was diagnosed as being autistic. Her neighbour described her as very smart and also as appeared to be a happy girl. Other people have said that she was a little bit more immature than people her age, but she did have friends. But she was last seen 15 years prior to 2022, and she was seen by a neighbour out exercising. After that, she hadn't been seen. Now, neighbours have said they did ask the parents about her, how she was, and they said Lacey was fine. We can only assume that people thought that perhaps she had moved on, perhaps she had gone to college, moved away, had a family, but she had not been seen by anyone in 15 years. So fast forward to January the 3rd, 2022, when emergency services were called to the home of the Fletchers. Lacey had been deceased for about 24 to 48 hours at this point, and the scene that the police found was shocking. They've described it that the smell hit them, and that then they found Lacey on the couch. Often if you see this story described, it's described as the woman that melted into her couch. It's described as an old 1960s couch, and the best way to describe it is that she was lying on her side. She was semi-naked except for, I believe, a shirt covering part of her body. The couch had gone down so far that it was 18 inches deep, and Lacey was sort of lying into that hole in the couch basically. She had bed sores. She was covered in urine and feces. It was in her hair. She was just absolutely covered in it, and the police described it as a shocking scene to come across. Now, it's believed that she was there for at least 12 years. On that couch for 12 years. 12 years. That's how long she was there. At least 12 years. Bearing in mind she hadn't been seen in 15. Now, the cause of death, I have it written down here because I didn't want to get it wrong. So the cause of death was severe medical neglect, which led to chronic malnutrition, acute starvation, immobility, acute ulcer formation, osteomyelitis, which is bone infection, which led finally to sepsis. So, the parents were charged with second-degree murder. They pleaded not guilty, and they were due to stand trial later this month. However, pretty recently, these charges were thrown out. But District Attorney Sam Tequila hopes that there will be a trial later this year and is bringing it before a new grand jury. So it was thrown out because the defence brought 3 reasons for it to be thrown out. The first 2 were denied, and the last reason was wording on the indictment, and the judge approved this. So it was thrown out. But Sam Tequila hopes that there will be a trial later this year. It has to go before another grand jury, so I assume that it would be... I'm not too familiar with the US justice system, and I know that every state is a little bit different, but as far as I know, the grand jury will then say if they've been charged with second-degree murder or what will happen. Her parents have claimed that Lacey had Loctin syndrome. Even if Lacey had Loctin syndrome, why would you leave your daughter sitting on a couch for 12 years in her own urine, in her own feces, with bed sores, ulcers? There was apparently maggots in the bed sores and in where the ulcers were. She was so badly infected. Why would you leave her there? Why not call emergency services, bring her to a hospital, get help for her? How could you do that and go about your daily life? Apparently there were churchgoers, pillars of the community, of course. But to me, I think that for Lacey to sit down and just not get up, there has to be more to it. Something extremely traumatic must have happened to Lacey to make her sit down and not get up. And her parents have clearly failed her in a huge way. But I mean, there has to be some extreme evilness there to leave your child like that. And they're out on bail, which to me is absolutely crazy. I think they should be held until trial. I think it's also crazy that the charges were thrown out at all. But I think all we can do is hope that more charges will be brought against them and there will be a trial later this year. And whenever that pops up, I will definitely try and cover it. As I said, I'm not an expert of the US legal system at all. This is me just doing a video about a woman who was autistic. And I feel like the name Lacey Fletcher can't be forgotten because she went through something so horrific. And I think when we see these stories, it's so important to remember the person behind these stories. It's when I seen this heading, I think the heading I seen was the woman that melted into the couch. I thought, sorry, what? And then when I read into the story, I just thought, this is shocking. But what I also find extremely shocking is that, like, for 15 years, nobody's seen her. And for 15 years, there was seemingly no friend or neighbour or family member who, like went into the house or who tried calling her or texting her or whatever it may be. And I find that, like, extremely concerning for people who become isolated and can become isolated in their own home with their own family. And I know this is a little bit off topic, but it's also still related to this. But I do feel there should be something out there that people who are isolated or vulnerable, whether that's through being disabled, through being autistic, mental health problems, age, that there should be something there in place, people in place to check on people like that. Because this is not the first case we've heard of with neglect from family members or neglect from parents. And this is unfortunately not the first case we've heard of where an autistic young person or child has been neglected or murdered. And I think that when you hear a case like this, people have to learn something from it. And I think that checking in on people is important, and somebody to check in on people. I'm not even sure what sort of a service that would be, but I do believe there should be something there. To go ahead and conclude today's video, I will do an updated video when the trial comes about. As I said, it was only the last few days I realised that the charges were thrown out. But I think all we can hope for is that when they go before another grand jury, which I believe is going to be this month, that I assume the same charges will be brought against them, and I hope that when it goes to trial they're found guilty, and that they never ever see the light of day again, because that's the least they deserve after putting their beautiful daughter through this. And I think that as I come to the end of this, I want to remember Lacey, and I want to say, like, what a beautiful young woman she was, and also what the neighbours said about her being very smart and appearing to be just a happy girl. And I think it's also important to remember it like that. I know this was an extremely different video for me, not something I would normally do, but I felt she was part of the autistic community and it was important to cover this. Thank you for watching. As I said, I'm not an expert on the legal system. This is just from my own research of this case. If anybody has anything to add or felt I left anything out that was important with this case, please do comment down below and keep the conversation going. Thank you for watching. As always, I will leave my details in the description box down below and at the end of this video. And thank you for watching. Thank you. Bye-bye.